I am Dr. Priyanka, professor in the Department of Pediatric, and this is my team, Dr. Omkar, assistant professor in our department, and Ms. Indu Rathore, nursing officer in our department. We are going to show you a simulated scenario of septic shock in a small child who has come to our emergency. And to brief a little bit about this topic, septic shock is a nightmare for us if the patient comes to us in decompensated state. That is when the blood pressures are low, because the mortality is up to the tune of 50%. However, if we identify the septic shock early with subtle signs like tachycardia, then we can give reasonably good outcomes. We'll be emphasizing the need of early antibiotics within 1 hour in such scenario. Just to tell you another thing, that compensated shock is the stage when the blood pressures are normal and the signs are very subtle. So our team will be showing you how to identify those subtle signs and how to do the systematic examination of the patient and not to miss anything. The case scenario is that we have been called from the emergency room that 9-month-old baby girl has been brought here with history of high-grade fever for last 3 days. She has no history of loose stools, vomiting, or respiratory symptoms. Her parents are complaining that since last 3 hours, that is since today morning, child seems increasingly irritable, agitated, and we'll go there as a team, examine the patient in a systematic manner, identify any immediate danger signs, and treat them first. While examining any small child, we have to be always systematic so as not to overlook anything. On the other hand, we have to be gentle and quick. The initial assessment should always focus on the stabilization of physiological parameters and functional impairments. At the beginning, I would like to tell you that to identify these subtle signs, one don't need to be a pediatrician always, and even a nurse can save the life by picking up these subtle signs. The learning objective of these sessions would be how to evaluate such a child and perform correct treatment in compensated shock and emphasize the need for early treatment with antibiotic. So here we are. We are here in the emergency. क्या हुआ दीदी? क्या हुआ बच्चे को?
बच्चे को 3 दिन से बुखार है और आज सुबह से बहुत चिड़चिड़ा भी रहा है।
अच्छा, और कोई परेशानी? अभी कुछ खाया है इसने आज सुबह से?
आज कुछ तो खाया तो नहीं है इसने।
पेशाब किया है?
पेशाब बस थोड़ा सा करा है, वो भी पीला पीला सा।
अच्छा, आप परेशान नहीं हो? आप वहां बैठो कुर्सी लेके, हम देखते हैं, आपको बताते हैं अभी, है ना? आप चिंता नहीं करिए. So we should always give due regard to even the small information given by the mother. This mother has given us a very important piece of information that the child is agitated since morning. Many times we tend to ignore these information. We think that this agitation is because of fever, but this information is quite useful to me. And she has also given me the information that the child has passed small amount of concentrated urine. So here I request Dr. Omkar to do a systematic examination following ABCDE approach. A stands for airway, B is breathing, C is circulation, D is disability, means neurological examination, and then he will do a quick exposure of the baby and he'll do a quick head-to-toe examination, just focusing on the relevant head-to-toe examination. In the meanwhile, I'll requesting my nursing officer to connect saturation probes, take blood sugar, check BP, temperature, and attach the ECG leads. Sister, please.
We'll start with the examination. First of all, airway is intact and breathing. The breathing appears to be regular. The breathing appears to be regular, and there are no other sounds audible. The respiratory rate. For counting respiratory rate, we have to be at the level of the chest and look for the respiratory movements at the chest. So please get down and we'll count the respiratory rate for full 1 minute. So respiratory rate is 56 per minute, and now we are going to auscultate for counting the heart rate. We'll auscultate the precordium and measure heart rate. So heart rate is 170 per minute. Now we are going to count pulse rate and pulse volume. Most commonly palpated artery is right radial artery. So over here, pulse is regular, good volume but bounding. Now we are going to look for extremities. Extremities appears to be warm to touch Next, we are going to look for CFT. Usually CFT in older children is seen in the palm or nail bed, but in smaller children, we look over bony prominences, most commonly is sternum. So over here, 1001, 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005, 1001, 1002. So you can see the CFT is less than 2 seconds and it was brisk in response. Next, we are going to look for anterior fontanelle. Anterior fontanelle is at level. Sister, torch. We are going to look for pupils. Both sides. Bilateral pupils are normal size and reacting to light. Then the child visibly appears to be agitated and irritable.
In the middle. So, the initial findings of the patient are that the patient is having spontaneous respiration with good chest rise, no audible sounds. Respiration rate was 56. So, the baby was having tachypnea, baby was having tachycardia, brisk capillary refill, pulses were bounding, and the pulse pressure is wide. We can see that the pulse pressure is wide. Baby is having visible sweating on the forehead and the baby is agitated. Despite systolic BP being normal, these are ominous signs suggested compensated shock. In the sepsis setting, we would be treating them as septic shock. If we miss it at this stage, this is going to decompensate, ultimately reaching into the stage of irreversible shock. Just to talk about the normal heart rates, for ease of reference, we take heart rate of a cutoff of 160 as the tachycardia in a child less than 1 year. Between 1 to 3 years of age, a heart rate more than 150 is taken as tachycardia. Between 3 to 6 years of age, a heart rate more than 160 is tachycardia. 6 to 12 years of age, heart rate more than 120 is tachycardia. And more than 12 years, heart rate more than 100 is taken as tachycardia. Capillary refill time should always be less than 3 seconds. Anything more than or equal to 3 is suggestive of poor tissue perfusion. Urine output is a very important marker of poor tissue perfusion. Systolic BP is less than 70. If systolic BP less than 70, it is low systolic BP in a child less than 1 year. And after 1 year, the easy way to calculate systolic BP for the ease of reference in emergency settings is the age, the 70 plus 2 multiplied by 8. That means in a child of 3 years, 70 plus 2 multiplied by 3. That means 70 plus 6. That means 76 should be the minimum systolic BP for us to be happy. So, in this baby, I'm just summarizing again. He's having tachycardia, tachypnea, flash CRT, sweating, diaphoresis, agitation, and wide pulse pressure. And with fever, I'm taking it as a case of septic shock. So, coming to the treatment step, sister, would you please start oxygen? Start the oxygen with a face mask. 5 liters per minute. You can use prongs also, or 2 liters per minute. Dr. Omkar, please let us prepare to insert a large bore cannula, 20 gauge. And with that cannula, we will take the samples of CBC, LFT, KFT, CRP, electrolytes, and blood gas and culture. Also, we will prepare to take a urine culture. Let us prepare to insert 2 cannulas so that we can give antibiotics also through the second cannula. From the first cannula, please start 20 ml per kg. The dose is 10 to 20 ml per kg of normal saline. We can use rinvatercept also. In this baby, he's 10 kg, she's 10 kg. So we are giving 20 ml per kg. That is 200 ml of normal saline. We will infuse it as rapidly as possible over 10 minutes. So sister, please infuse 200 ml. I'm sorry, 400 ml. Can we check the weight again in the case file? Sister, can we check the weight again in the file? Yeah, it's 10 kg. Yeah, so the weight is 10 kg. So I'm sorry again. So weight is 10 kg. So 20 multiplied by 10. We are starting with 200 ml. First bolus would be 200 ml of normal saline. Sister, 200 ml. Okay. Can you repeat how much bolus you are giving?
200 ml of normal.
Yeah. So please repeat loudly. 200 ml.
200 ml of normal saline.
Yeah. So she is starting with 200 ml normal saline. Throw the cannula in the upper arm. And give it as fast as possible. We'll keep a watch on the heart rate and respiration and capillary refill. And once this bolus will be over, we will check the heart rate, respiration, CRT, and blood pressure again.
Obtained in samples for blood gas.
Okay.
And
Okay. So now we have 2 cannulas. So through the second cannula, please give. So please make it fast, sister. Okay. So the second cannula, sister, give 500 milligram of antibiotic XYZ. I'm not naming any antibiotic because that antibiotic depends on the local antibiotic policies, but always choose a wide spectrum antibiotic because septic shock has a very high mortality rate. So antibiotic should be chosen very carefully. In the meanwhile that bolus is going on, we are giving the antibiotic dose, and we have taken all the cultures to the first cannula. We have sent the ABG also. We can see that the heart rate is not improving, and although the bolus is going on, but the heart rate is almost the same. Tachypnea is almost the same. And even the pleth can show that the pulses are almost the same. And in between, we can monitor the pulses. Yeah. So, is the first bolus over? Yeah. So, our first bolus is over. Dr. Omkar, would you please assess the patient again? This time, we will assess for the heart rate, respiration, CRT, blood pressure, as well as we will also assess for the signs of fluid overload.
Again, we are going to check the respiratory rate and heart rate, exposing the chest and counting the respiratory rate. Respiration is around 54 per minute. Then we have to auscultate for heart rate, and along with that, I'll auscultate for the signs of fluid overload to auscultate the chest for Rales and other adventitious signs. First of all, heart rate. Heart rate is 160 per minute. Then auscultating chest for adventitious sounds and breaths. Bilateral chest is clear. There are no repetitions or adventitious sounds. Now we are going to look for pulses. Pulses are still bounding. Extremities are still warm to touch. CFT 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005, 1001, 1002. CFT is still less than 2 seconds and it is brisk. Now we are going to look for liver enlarged, whether liver is enlarged or not, which is again a sign of fluid overload. We start from right iliac fossa parallel to the subcostal margin and we go upwards. Liver is not touched.
So, Dr. Omkar has looked for the crepitations in the chest and hepatomegaly, which are signs of fluid overload in a bigger child, in a child more than say 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 years, in which the neck is, you can examine the neck for jugular veins. You would also look for the raised JVP. Here I would like to emphasize upon that septic shock is a very complex kind of shock in which there is a mixture of pathophysiology, in which there is a hypovolemic component and septic distributive component as well as cardiogenic component. So after giving first bolus, even during the bolus is going on, you have to be very careful. You will never come to know that how much fluid a patient wants. There might be a good amount of hypovolemic component, but there might be lot of cardiogenic component. So how much component, which particular factor is playing a role, you would never come to know. So you have to be very careful when the boluses are going on. One patient might need up to 60 ml per kg, the other patient might deteriorate even with 20 ml per kg. So this is very important thing to keep monitoring for the signs of overload. And we don't know whether the patient will need second bolus or will need 3 bolus or how many boluses he will need. So here this particular patient is having tachycardia, but the heart rate is somewhere at the same level, tachypnea is also at the same level, and we have checked the BP also because it's a NIBP through the monitor. We have checked it again. It is also almost the same. He has no signs of fluid overload, so our team has decided to give another bolus, and we can give 10 ml, we can give 20 ml per kg, any amount. For the ease of reference, we have decided to give 200 ml normal saline again. So, Sister Indu, please infuse 200 ml normal saline more, and so second bolus can be started now. Give this bolus also over 5 to 10 or 15 minutes maximum. Give it rapidly. दीदी बच्चे की तबीयत थोड़ी ज्यादा खराब लग रही है ना, परेशान मत होइए, अभी देखते हैं, हो सकता है हमें इसे आईसीयू में लेकर जाना पड़े, ठीक है, चिंता नहीं करिए, है ना, हम हैं यहाँ पे, तो आप परेशान मत होइए, ठीक है डॉक्टर। So if you have more people in your team, in the meanwhile, the detailed history can be taken, but suppose you are not many people, the initial assessment should not be focusing on taking a detailed history, and the initial focus should only on the stabilization of the hemodynamic parameters. But if you have more people in your team, in the meanwhile, the other person can take the detailed history, and the detailed examination can be withheld for the later stage. But as we discussed in this particular patient, a quick head-to-toe examination should always be done. Like in this particular case, as we did not miss the agitation, we did not miss the sweating, we checked for the NTF fontanelle, we look for the pupils, because fever with agitation could have been a case of meningitis also. So the relevant quick examination should always be done in the emergency itself. So is the second bolus over? Okay, so now the second bolus is over. Now Dr. Omkar would do the second assessment, and let us decide what we have to do now with the patient. Dr. Omkar, please do the second assessment and
auscultating for the heart rate and chest for signs of fluid overload, which includes your palpitations. Heart rate is again 170 per minute. Auscultating chest. Chest is clear. There are no sound. Bilateral chest is clear. Then extremities are warm to touch. You feel and radial pulse. Pulses are still bounding, but it is regular. Checking CFT 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005. 1001 CFT is still brisk. Then
I request Dr. Omkar to demonstrate this thing again, how to look for CRT, because we depend a lot on the capillary refill time, and it's a very important thing. We request our viewer to learn capillary refill time.
liver is not involved.
Dr. Omkar, would you please demonstrate
Yes.
our viewers how to look for capillary refill time?
For capillary refill time in older children, we either check on palm or nail bed. So we have to press and count for 5 seconds. We count 5 seconds like 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005. Or it could be done against any bony prominences. In small children, we usually do it on sternum. So you can see over here,
Can you please zoom?
we press on sternum and count for 5 seconds. We count each second as 1001, 1002, or we can also say as Mississippi 1, Mississippi 2. 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005. You have to lift the finger and count back. So, and now 1001, 1002. So you can see it goes back in less than 2 seconds. So 2 or less than 2 is our normal CFT, and in some cases, if it goes back as soon as the finger is lifted, it is brisk or flash CFT. So that is again a sign of distributor shock.
So flash CRT is also not a, we should not be happy seeing a flash CRT, as well as we should not be happy seeing a CRT of 3 or more seconds. It's a sign of poor perfusion. And a flash CRT is suggestive of vasodilation and a kind of wide pulse pressure. So this is very important practical skill which we should know. So here we can see that the heart rate is almost the same we started with, and in fact a little bit on a higher side rather. And our team is not very comfortable giving the third bolus, so we would like to start norepinephrine at this stage because it's a warm shock. So we are planning to start norepinephrine, and here we are telling the relatives at this stage that we are taking the patient to PICU, and at this particular stage, because he will need a few more investigations and few more workups. And so this is the stage the patient need to be taken more seriously. So sister, please dilute. So the dose of norepinephrine I would start with this 0.1 microgram per kg per minute. So sister, please dilute 1.5 ml of norepinephrine in 24 ml normal saline and start at 1 ml per hour. Okay, and also start the again as 40 ml per hour, that is 4 ml per kg per hour. Drug was 10 kg. Okay, and we have already given 1 shot of antibiotic, right? दीदी परेशान नहीं होइए, है ना? आप ठीक डॉक्टर, आप भी साथ में चलेंगी, है ना? ठीक हो जाएगा ना बच्चे, बिल्कुल आप परेशान मत होइए, जैसे जैसे बच्चे की कंडीशन चेंज होगी हम आपको बताते रहेंगे, ठीक है? आप भी साथ में ही रहेंगी, हम आपको लेके चलेंगे साथ में, ठीक डॉक्टर। हाँ, अभी थोड़ा सा बच्चे को इन्फेक्शन है, जिसकी वजह से थोड़ा सा बच्चे का थोड़ा ब्लड प्रेशर तो नॉर्मल है, लेकिन अगर हम इसको इस हालत में नहीं संभालेंगे तो ब्लड प्रेशर भी गिरने लगेगा और शरीर के सारे जो अंग होते हैं वो भी फिर थोड़ा नुकसान में जाएंगे, तो इसको अभी संभालना बहुत जरूरी है। ठीक, शुरुआत है, मतलब इन्फेक्शन थोड़ा सा ज्यादा। ठीक डॉक्टर, आप भगवान आप ठीक कर देंगे, आप चिंता नहीं करिए। ठीक टीचर, थैंक यू। So this is was a case of early treatment of septic shock. After taking this patient to PICU, we would titrate the doses of vasopressors. We would do few more investigations of the causes why this sepsis has happened, and since the patient had fever, we would also like to work up this patient for MISC, and also would like to see whether there was any setting of epidemiological link to COVID-19, and there will be more extensive investigations if we have available, like bedside ultrasound, echo, and the basic investigations like chest X-ray. So if you have any questions, we would be happy to reply.
Dr. Priyanka, what are the other differential diagnoses you have to think of in this child?
What I personally feel is, and what many of my colleagues feel, is that during COVID-19, we should not always think of COVID-19. And this particular baby is a very small baby, 9-month-old with fever of 3 days, having a septic shock-like picture, distributive shock, in fact. We should first think of the common thing common. So I would first think of UTI and the malaria, and also the enteric fever. And also should not forget, like with the ongoing pandemic, also should not neglect those things. So we would definitely take a RT-PCR of this baby, and also would like to search for epidemiological link with the COVID-19. We should not take every fever as MISC, nor we should not ignore the risk of MISC. So every fever is not MISC, nor so any fever can be MISC, and every fever is not MISC. This is, we have to understand. And MISC is always like we have to rule out infections. So the usual infections we were having earlier also. So, and in MISC usually we see the cardiogenic shock. This particular picture, and the main crux is, as we discussed today, we should be focusing mainly first on the stabilization of the hemodynamic parameters. So our focus initially in the emergency should be on the stabilization of the patient and not on the diagnosis. We should detect first and then diagnose later. So this is the main thing we should focus in the emergency settings. And obviously you have to take the precautions, the safety of the patient as well as the healthcare worker. That is always there.
There's another question from the audience. Is it necessary to do COVID test of the newborn if the rooming in has to be continued?
Let me talk that way, that a mother, suppose, who has delivered today, like say 1st of January, suppose the mother has delivered today and she is SARS-CoV-2 positive on 1st of January. She would be maximum positive by maximum positive up to say 14th or 17th January. Now, if she can transmit the infection, would be maximum. I'm not talking about, like, in a theoretical sense, but on an average, she can transmit it by say 14th of January. So till from the day of delivery till say 2 weeks minimum, she should take respiratory precautions. Now, the infant is likely to catch infection from the mother anytime. I'm taking the numbers as average. If I take 14 as the average number, that means till 14th January, the infant is likely to catch the infection from mother. Again, suppose 14th is the last day the infant has got the infection. That means infant is likely to spread the virus or give the virus to somebody. Maximum say till 30th of January. So again, the question is that for how long both pairs should be isolated. So maximum should be somewhere near 30th January or say 1 month. Now, is the testing important for their rooming in? Definitely no, because if we room them together, this is going to give them many other benefits, which will be way higher than the risk of transmission. If the risk of transmission is suppose say 0.000001%, there are many more concerns like defaulting with the breastfeeding or risk of many more infections. So we have to weigh the balance. So risk of transmission is negligible from mother to baby if mother is wearing the mask, mother is taking the hand hygiene precautions. So testing is not required otherwise in a baby, but yes, we always test the baby on day 2 of life, that is after 24 hours of life, before 48 hours of baby. That is to confirm the perinatal transmission. And the second test we may take after day 5th of life. That is to confirm the perinatal transmission. That is whatever transmission has happened in the during the time of the birth process. After that, as I told you, the transmission can happen any time so baby is likely to catch infection anytime till 30th January, as I gave you the example. So करोगे तो कब तक टेस्ट करोगे, ऐसे तो करते ही रहोगे. So there is no point in repeating these tests. That is why the guidelines are very clear that you test only once, 24 to 48 hours. After that, the guidelines are quite variable. There is no fixed guidelines. There is only one thing very common, that first test between 24, and the first test is not taken before 24 hours because there are high chances of contamination, colonization, and false positive reports. So,
thank you, Dr. Priyanka. There's another question from Dr. Atul Gautam. Post-delivery, will you do COVID test in baby and mother if not done before delivery? Can you highlight about the baby?
Okay. So, I believe what you are, Dr. Atul, what you are asking is that suppose, maybe stop this voice. Maybe stop this voice. So I believe what Dr. Atul want to ask is that a mother was asymptomatic. We did not do any routine testing of the baby, and now they are concerned whether we missed the routine testing and now we should do routine testing or not. So the logic of routine testing we should understand. Suppose there was a time when like few months back, the routine testing of all antenatal mother who are coming laboring in the labor room was advised. The logic of the reason for advising that by our was to prevent the spread of infection in the hospital settings. It was not for the health of that mother. So if that logic is now gone, there is no point in testing now. They should be tested only if they are symptomatic. I mean, the pair has come, delivered now they have gone home. So they should now be treated as any other like routine pair.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Priyanka. There's another question from Jyoti. How to sterilize COVID PICU?
Ideally, what I believe is that the routine housekeeping norms were there in place earlier also for PICU and NICU and ICUs, and they're almost the same for the OT, for the NICU, for PICU, for every actually the high care area, in fact the labor rooms and OTs also. And the norms, if we see, they are almost the same. Like suppose you have to disinfect this bed, then you have to obviously disinfect it by some quaternary ammonium compound or using, and you have to suppose sterilize your embu bag. Then you have to either do a ETO or put it in a chlorhexidine solution for 2 hours minimum. And if you want to just disinfect it, put it in for say 30 minutes only. So those rules were already there in place and they are same only. There is nothing changed as such. The thing is, probably we were not much vigilant earlier. Now we are more aware probably, but they were already there in place.
Thank you, Dr. Priyanka. There's another question. I think Dr. Omkar, for you, when the baby was crying, why did you check pupils? So is it required to check pupils always?
The baby presented to us with complaints of fever since 3 days.
Can you please?
The baby presented to us with complaints of fever since 3 days, and the child was irritable with decreased oral acceptance. So definitely one of the possibilities was meningitis. So, and along with that, there could be raised ICT. So definitely I looked for anterior fontanelle because this was 1-year-old child and the anterior fontanelle was still open. Secondly, pupils to look for for pupillary reaction and the size of the pupils, which we normally do in all childs which present to us in casualty. I hope that answers your query.
Actually, this scenario, we wanted to recreate it like this, that whenever approaching a sick child, because whenever we are in emergency, we don't spend 1 hour history taking, 1 hour examination in any child, but we have to be quick, but be very specific what we need to examine and what we can miss for that particular moment. That is what we wanted to show, that ABCDE approach. E stand for exposure, quick head to toe examination, which should be relevant. And mind, the eyes will see only what mind will know. Because Dr. Omkar's mind knew that meningitis could be a possibility. That's why he checked the anterior fontanelle. That's why he looked for the pupils. So this is what we wanted to emphasize in this particular activity. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Priyanka and Dr. Omkar.
Thank you.
Thank you, sister. Okay. There's one more question, sorry. Can you be there? Please highlight about the role of steroids in enoxaparin in pediatric shock.
Steroids, see, they are double-edged, what we all know. Steroids are useful only in severe disease, and moderate disease, we should always avoid using them unless the case is deteriorating. And definitely steroids are very useful in cases of MISC, especially those with Kawasaki-like presentation and those with coming with shock. In fact, MISC without Kawasaki and MISC without shock also have to be given steroids. So in MISC means multi-system inflammatory systemic illness in children, which is a hyperinflammatory kind of state, post-COVID illness. Steroids are the main treatment. But in the acute COVID illness, they don't have much role. I would say there is hardly any role. So MISC definitely they have a role. And enoxaparin is not much useful unless in MISC, unless there is some thrombosis or you have very low ejection fraction or you have coronary aneurysms. So they are not much required, and they are used only by the experts. So anything else? Yeah. No more further questions. Thank you.
Now we'll close this workshop. And first of all, I would like to thank Dean Sir, who was the driving force behind all this, Ladle team, who made it possible to happen, Dr. Monica, who is the nodal officer of Skill Lab. I would like to thank entire anesthesia department, entire OT team, all nursing staff for their cooperation to make this workshop, live workshop, happen at a very short time notice. Would like to thank our OT technicians, OT assistants for their support, for all staff who has worked in the background and made it possible. Would like to thank all the nursing orderlies, everybody who has worked day and night to complete this workshop and make this workshop a success. Would like to thank all the participants as well, and entire technical team, our IT team as well, for making it possible. Thank you so much. So handing over the mic to Dr. Monica now.
So good afternoon all. Hope you all enjoyed the workshop, and I must say that it was nothing less than a Netflix series, medical series. It was a thriller kind of thing with all involved in stabilizing the patient and the child. So we would definitely love to have some feedback remarks from all of you, and to improve in future, if you have any suggestions that we can take and for the future workshops, whatever you have to say, you are most welcome. And I think Dr. Rashmi wants to add something to this.
And not in the last but not the least, Dr. Prashant sir has provided all the support to make this workshop happen in a very short time, and a round lot of applause for him from us. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for this to happen. Thanks a lot.